Hi, everyone. Welcome to the PM Case Files. So, I'm really excited to see you and thank you so much for coming. Today, the case file, if you will, that we're going to be taking a look at is the season 3 finale of FRoM. Now, this is what I'm calling sacrifice in 3 parts. We're going to be looking at what we can learn about the exposition of sacrifice. As you know, we have seen it all up and down the show, and the season finale did an amazing job at showing sacrifice depicted in 3 very powerful ways. So let's get started. Okay, so here we go, Bitey. Thank you so much for coming, Bitey Kitty. We have Golden Child. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. Um, Lisandra Dragonov. I hope that's correct. Of course, Peter Griffin. Thank you. What a pleasure. Um, the J Review. I think I've heard of him. Yeah. And All City Big Heg. Here I am, All City Big Heg. He gave me a hard time about last live. Okay, Jay Slick. Family Theory. Yes, thank you so much for coming. Family Theory has so much good information about the mythos. And Baby Clay Media and Reactions. Thank you. Thank you for showing up, Baby Clay. Okay, so Real Enigmas and Theories. Thank you, Nini. Hi, Nini. And Muncher Luncher. Okay, that's a pretty cool name. Let's go ahead and get started. So, the season finale was amazing. If you look at it like from an exposition angle, and that's what I want to try to um, dive into today with you guys. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. I'm going to share my screen so that you may be able to see with pictures what I'm trying to explain. Just a minute. Okay, here we go. I'll remove these banners, that way they're not bothering you guys as much and you can see everything. And thank you so much for being patient with me. Here at the PM Case Files, we are a passionate channel, but we are by no means a professional channel. So just be patient with us as we gather the skills that it takes to show you what we want to talk about. Okay, so let's get started with this show. Okay, so when we began the season finale, what I'm referring to as sacrifice in 3 parts really is sacrifice for love, sacrifice to love, and sacrifice of love. Let's begin with Tabitha, the child, and Jade. So, what's really interesting about what happened with Tabitha, remembering that she, in fact, did have a child with Jade and they were soulmates, if you will, was absolutely heartbreaking. What seemed heartbreaking to me about it was that this child had been waiting for her mother to remember her father to perhaps embrace her. And she has been waiting lifetimes. They have done this over and over again. And while Tabitha is going through a lot, she definitely did not deliver. She ran away from her, you know, her line, no, 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 right? We all know it. We all love it. She completely just let that child down, right? What we see here, and I think it's really interesting, is that when they are at the tree, they perform a ceremony of marriage vows. It's Tabitha and Jade standing at the tree. You have Jim looking on, and Jade says a very powerful line. He says, whoever has something to say, speak now or forever hold your peace. Which then Jade goes on to say, go ahead. He makes a hand signal, this one, and he says, go ahead. You could see them here at the bottom. That is the marriage vows. Jim, unknowingly so, is letting them know that he is okay on embarking into this, right? And he didn't know it at the time, but what he would discover is that the love of his life, because even though Jim was not perfect, Tabitha, in fact, was the love of his life, right? I think we could all agree on that. Even though he was not perfect by any means, this person that he was in love with is not his soulmate. We have all maybe had situations when we have been told that we are not the one. However, what happened to him was in proportions. The magnitude of it was amazing because it was just not, you're not the one right now, but you are not the one forever. You never were, not in this lifetime, not in the next one. And that has to be painful, whether we like Jim or not. Now, here we have Jade. Jade mentions in the episode that energy cannot be created or destroyed, and that energy, he believes, lingers in this place. So you're forever stuck there. This bond that they have has been there and will be there in this lifetime and in the next. And Jim just gets to witness the pain, the suffering, and that in itself is a sacrifice to love, because he has to see both of these people come to terms with the fact that they are, in fact, forever bound. Now, something that has been very interesting is that Boyd has been getting a lot of flack for what he did. It's not correct. What he did is not okay by any means. I'm not saying that it is okay, but I am saying let's entertain the thought of why he did it. In contrast to the monsters, Jim sacrificed himself. He was willing to sacrifice his soul and his life for his child, which is very much in contrast to the monsters. As we know, they sacrifice their children in order to gain something for themselves. So while we don't completely agree with Jim, we don't completely agree with Boyd, we have to look at where they're coming from. Now, here, what's really interesting is that Father Cautry, or the entity that pretends to be Father Cautry, says there's no coming back from this, because that's who you're going to be from now on. Now, this to me is a clear indication that that is not, in fact, Father Cautry, because anyone who knows anything about religion, the Bible, is that God does forgive sins. So Boyd does have the ability to repent. And as long as he repents and he genuinely believes that he has been redeemed in God's eyes, he would be able to live this down. I think that Father Cotter was just trying to stop him from potentially finding Fatima. Now, let's take a minute here to read some of your comments. I want to hear what you have to say. Okay, so we have, let me see. I want you to see the comments as well. Boyd can do no wrong. He absolutely can. What Boyd did may not be correct. However, we have to take into account that once you bring a child into existence, the responsibility to that child transcends any and all other responsibility, whether that be to government. he is the government and from bill, or responsibility to others, or even community. And that's what Boyd was doing. He was sacrificing himself, sacrificing his soul, his values, and who he is as a person for his child. We get a really powerful scene where we see parents sacrificing themselves for their children. So we know that Victor's father, Henry, he has been really patient with Victor. We rarely see him get angry with Victor. But in this picture here, you could see that he is holding him. He's saying, like, finally, like, stop, Victor, I need to speak with you. And what finally did it for him is that Victor said, you don't have to be my father anymore. And Henry reminds him, that is not a choice. I will always be your father. This is my responsibility. Okay, let's see. Breezy K says, Boyd is human. We all have biases and we are all hypocrites. Thank you so much, Breezy, for your comment. And that is, in fact, correct. Do not make idols out of men, for they will fail you every time. Boyd is not a god, he is a man. So he cannot be perfect. And the decision that he made was one of sacrifice. He was not doing what he did because he believed that torturing Elgin was the correct thing to do. He did it because he felt that it was his responsibility to do it so that Ellis wouldn't have to. Okay, let's see. Peter Griffin says, it is quite something that Cynthia and Kui can recognize Tabitha mother. I wonder if Julie will be able to recognize her when she goes back in time to try to save the children. That's actually a really good question. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. Okay, well, I'm not gonna read this one, but you guys can see it on the screen. All city big heck. Definitely. I mean, it is absolutely painful. Like I said, we all maybe have experienced the disappointment of not being the one. But what happened to Jim was absolutely gut wrenching. It happened on a profound level. It happened to the point where there was no denying that he was, in fact, not the one. Okay, so we have no context. I completely misunderstood the at first what Christopher was Eloise's dad. Okay, so you believe Christopher to be Eloise's dad? Yeah, I think Christopher is just another version or a past life of this soul that is in Jade that has been experiencing this. So not necessarily that they had a child together, but that was Jade's soul, right? Okay. Okay, so here is a really good quote from the episode. Henry tells Victor, your mother did what she did because she loved you. And he says, you don't have to be my father anymore. Henry then tells Victor, that is my job. That's my job now. I have to. It is not an option. And this relates and correlates to what Boyd did because it is not an option. He does not have the option of putting his values before his child. One thing that I thought was really interesting about the finale is that we really did come full circle with Boyd, his story, the tragedy that is Boyd's life. If we recall, Boyd, he picked the town over his own wife. Now, in the finale, once he has saved Alice and Fatima, he tells Alice, who wants him to come with them, go take care of your wife. Now, those are powerful words. If we recall, Boyd, in fact, did not go to take care of his wife. In his own life, the choice that he made was the absolute opposite. But in this one, what do we want for our children? We want the best. We want better. We don't want our life. We want something better than potentially we had, or something better than potentially we experienced. And this is Boyd telling him, you go take care of your wife. And he has the luxury of doing that because Boyd is willing to take the fall, to lose his soul, to do the job so that Ellis doesn't have to do that job. Now, Ellis is, some people say, he's soft, he's a creative soul. He's not like his father, Iron Abbey, or his mother, right? Or father Boyd. And that's because he has the luxury of having two people that are so strong that will do the work so that he may be soft. That is a luxury. And here we see that Boyd is willing to do that. Boyd looks at him and says, I will be right behind you. Okay. And that's powerful. It's saying, I will follow you. If we have to go down to hell, if I have to lose my soul, I will follow you, my child. And a lot of people get this confused with family. Oh, well, Boyd didn't take care of his family. No, he didn't take care of his wife. Your child is an absolutely different contract. It is a karmic debt because you have brought this soul into the world. It is a responsibility that you can undo with divorce, you can undo it with marriage. They are your child forever. Let's take a look at the comments. Okay, so Baby Clay Media says Boyd didn't get a chance to take care of his wife in the town. That's why he tells Ellis, because he knows what can happen. Exactly. Boyd wasn't afforded the opportunity to do that because he didn't have someone that was willing to take the responsibility of making sure that everybody was safe. He made the choice in his personal life that he was going to put the town before his family, before his child. He did not want his child to suffer the same fate. So he is then going to take the responsibility of going after the baby, which we now know is Smiley, and letting Ellis take care of his wife. It brings us full circle, and it's very powerful, this line. He also says, I will be right behind you, which is so powerful because it is a show of a parent supporting you. Let's see. Hi, Chocolate Beauty. Thank you so much for coming in. Okay, so Glugans and Rosa says, I'm wondering about that too. Did Christopher really go evil in the 1970s timeline, or was that Victor's bad memory or his skewed view as a child? Now, what we know about Victor is that we cannot trust his recollection of facts and ideas. Memories and what he says has been shown to be incorrect, not because he outright lies, but because he sometimes adds a person, removes or adds information. So, absolutely right. We can't really trust it. Oh, thank you, Baby Clay. I love the show. So, if I had to talk about it by myself with one person, that would be fine too. But thank you so much. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at our next slide. Um, Here we go. Okay, so here we get the sacrifice that Jim made without him knowing. So Jim also sacrificed something. He was sacrificed to love. And it might not be as obvious as the other two sacrifices, sacrificing your children like the monsters did, or Boyd sacrificing himself for his child. But here, what we see is that the I called him, the man in yellow, and this would be Jeremy's Yellow King, right? He comes in and he kills Jim. The last thoughts that Jim has in his head before he dies are of heartbreak on a massive scale. That in itself is a sacrifice to love. His heartbreak is because he discovered knowledge. He is forever changed because now he has new information. And when we see that the men in yellow comes in, which you could see here on the screen, he says knowledge comes with a cost. Now, the cost of knowledge is not just you might get physically hurt, but what is deeper? It's emotional and mental damage. Sometimes there are things that you discover that forever change you. There's knowledge that you could have done without. It's better to wonder about certain subjects than to know the absolute truth and never be able to recover. Let's pause here and I will go ahead and take a look at your comments. Okay, Chocolate Beauty says maybe Victor didn't like Christopher because his mom was with Christopher in town. I think that that is an excellent point, Chocolate Beauty, because he was in a two-parent household. He saw his mother and father together. They got in the car, ended up in town, and his father is not there. Unlike Jim, Victor didn't have his dad with him. So really all he had was his mother and seeing a connection. Because like we have seen in the season and season 1, the connection between the souls is there at a subconscious level, but it is there. So that's an absolute great point. Yes. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at this comment. Thank you, Ash Muff. I hope I said that correctly for your comment. Ash Muff says, I think some people are so deep with theater theories that they want to make them fit rather than the other way around. Oh, with their theories, yes. It's a possibility. I don't discount anybody's theories because it is their personal way of looking at the show. So I think that it's really interesting that there's so many people and so many different ways at looking at the same story. But yeah, perhaps. Yes, Glue Guns and Roses. um, Victor really had to be alone with his sister Eloise to witness what we have seen happen in the story with Jim, Tabitha, Jade, but he didn't have the luxury of having Henry to provide any sort of stability. Okay, now let's load this picture because what Julie says is really powerful. Ethan, they're in the diner. Ethan tells Julie that he is forgetting what Tian Chang looked like or how she was, and also forgetting what his little baby brother was like. Julie then gets excited, tells him about being able to go what she believes is traveling back in time. Ethan says you can't really change a story once it's been told. But she does mention that potentially she could save Thomas. And what I think that they're hinting at by saying that is that Julie may have made the call that inevitably killed Thomas by trying to prevent it. Perhaps she called home and tried to tell her father or mother to take care of Thomas. And that is the call that ended up being the reason why Thomas died. It's really interesting that when we see Sarah during the season finale, Boyd goes to pick her up and she is at the church. And I think that it is by design that they have selected this location for Sarah. Sarah is looking for salvation. So she's hanging out at the church. Father Kotri is not there. However, she's just sitting there. She is looking for salvation. And she has said it before, I would do anything to feel like a good person again. And what does she get? She gets an opportunity to sacrifice herself in order to feel like maybe just a little bit more of a good person, not necessarily a good person, but for her to feel helpful. Okay, so we have Chocolate Beauty. She says, the best thing about FRoM is that everyone's theory makes sense because it draws from so many different cultures and folklore. That is correct, Chocolate Beauty. The amazing thing about FRoM is that the writers are so intelligent. They created a unique show because it is not unique, a different show because it's not different. Instead of trying to avoid similarities, they decided that they would include absolutely everything that we see in media, philosophy, and storytelling and put it all into one, therefore creating a brand new style of show. We see the American flag in the opening credits, and I think it is no mistake that we see the American flag waving in the background. Like I described, this melting pot of ideas, of media consumption, stories, folklore, religion. It's a melting pot as well. The story is incorporating everything. Okay, let's see. Lysandra says, okay, she likes reading the theories and discussions. Good, good. Okay. We finally get to see the rebirth of Smiley. Now, what's really interesting, so this is the part of sacrifice of love that is an example of the highest form of betrayal possible. Now, when a child is small, when they are a baby, they're a child, that is the time in their life that they will be the most vulnerable. For the parent to have hurt, or in this case, sacrifice that child, it is the highest betrayal possible. For not only did they need the parent, but there is that contract of having brought them into the world. You are therefore obligated to care for them. If we remember in the story, they say the children were sacrificed by someone they loved. They were murdered by someone that they loved, which is what we see here. The people who did this to them did not love them, but the children did love them. And that is the ultimate betrayal. Where in Boyd's case, what we see is the opposite. Boyd loves his son and he's willing to sacrifice himself for his son. And he is okay with that. He understands what the repercussions are and he's willing. Okay. Jackson Rain says, hi, Jackson. First of all, right? They're innocent and pure. Correct. So when we're thinking about the sacrifice of the innocent, it is not only one of the highest betrayals that it is at the hands of their parent, but it is also the sacrifice of the absolute most magical, most innocent being that there could ever be. For children are happy in their ignorance. They're happy because they don't really know the reality of life. And so to do that, it is just a grave, grave betrayal. Now, here we see how affected Tabitha is. And you could, in the scene, you could definitely see how affected she was to relive the fact that her child was murdered, that her child now forever waits for her. Life after life, her child waits for her to remember, stuck in an endless loop of despair. Okay, so we have a comment from Jalen Martin, and he says, would Elgin be a reincarnation of the man Jade saw with one eye? I think that's definitely a possibility. And in my opinion, if we are bringing reincarnation into the storyline, then the rule must apply to everyone. It would not just be that Jade and Tabitha are reincarnated. I would think the entire world now is at play for reincarnation. The only difference between Tabitha and Jade is that Tabitha and Jade are condemned to live every reincarnated life and FRoM at some point to get stuck there, to try and fail, while other people get the opportunity to be reincarnated into the world. Maybe sometimes they marry into FRoM because they marry somebody that is going to get stuck there, like Jem, and they end up there themselves. But perhaps in the next lifetime, they don't. Let's see. Let's take a look at the comments. Okay. So I do see you guys are talking about the spoilers. Okay, let's see. Accusations of spoiler theories. Okay. Yeah, the spoilers were a big sort of contention for the From community. Um, it's very unfortunate because it has been a very positive community. People love the show and everybody is so kind and wonderful. And it's really nice that everyone gets excited about having their very own theory. Now, it is possible that multiple people come to the same conclusion, therefore have the same theories. I can definitely see that part of it. And I can also understand the people that are hurt when they feel that something has been taken from them. So I can see both sides of the issue. It is unfortunate. Okay, so I just at the slide here in the back, I just find it so interesting that as soon as they found out, they immediately knew. They knew, and Tabitha even mentioned at some level, I knew, I remembered, I kept making those bracelets. So now we have our explanation as to why there are multiple bracelets, all with the same flaw. And it is because she subconsciously remembered that she was tied into this place and that eventually she needed to go back into this cycle. Okay, let's see your comments. Chocolate beauty, maybe not true reincarnation, but some level. Yes, of course, that is a possibility. What's wonderful about the story is that really they get to come up with absolutely anything that they want in this universe, and they get to tell us what the rules are for them. So, as far as time traveling, how is that going to work? We can speculate. However, really, who is going to tell us the rules of time travel is going to be the writers. Everything else is just speculation. Whether they could change the past, the future, the present, that's just speculation until we are told. And the same for reincarnation. Maybe it's not reincarnation the way that we usually think about reincarnation, but it could be a version of it that the writers have crafted specifically for From. Okay. Chocolate Beauty. She's always pointing out the facts, you guys. So Chocolate Beauty says Tabitha got turned on when Jim took control. Perhaps, really, at the end of the show is when we really saw that they were the most connected. They really were, getting, it was kind of like they were trying to get along. And a lot of people agreed that they sensed that they didn't want the divorce, that the divorce was not inevitable like we believed it was before. And I have to be honest, I do believe that it was a little bit heartbreaking to see, to witness someone go through this, to see it in their face. Your beloved is not yours, never has been, and never will be. Like this picture here that we have in the corner. He's basically standing down there. It's Tabitha and Jade standing by the tree together. Jade says, "Now, if anybody has second thoughts, speak now or forever hold your peace," which is marriage vows. Those are marriage vows. They look over at Jim, and this is the hand signal that he makes, meaning go ahead, because he is very ignorant of what is about to happen, that his world will fall apart shortly. And in fact, it does. Okay, Baby Clay Media and Reaction says the emotional damage that Jim has faced was crazy. In fact, that is true, Baby Clay. I know that Jim was not the most likable character. However, we must be able to examine Jim, hold the fact that he was unlikable in our mind, while simultaneously also understanding that he did go through a lot of trauma, a lot of psychological trauma and emotional trauma. Not only did he lose a child in a way where he may feel responsible, but also his marriage was falling apart. Then they get stuck in From. He's not handling it well. And now the person that he wants to hold on to so tightly, he discovers was just not for him. That's not his soulmate. It never was and never will be. And then we have the man in yellow come in and rip out his throat. I mean, talk about trauma. Okay, well, all city big heck. Do you really mean that? Put it in the chat if you actually mean it. Because, and the reason why I say this, all city big heck, is because a lot of people will say that, but they are of the idea that Jim was like the worst and that he deserves the most horrible of fates. So do you genuinely mean poor Jim, he didn't deserve any of this? Okay, so Peter Griffin, our beloved Peter Griffin says, I'm hoping they aren't actually soulmates as much as the two who struck the deal. Only to come back out when Julie visits them. Okay. So this is what I was thinking. The people in town, the story that we're told is that the people in town, they sacrificed their children. Tabitha Jade had a daughter. They didn't want her to be sacrificed. They tried to save them. They were unable to save them. And now they're stuck in this loop. Their child, their little girl, who I think is the little girl, this one, right? Who approaches them, she is stuck in this loop waiting for her mother lifetime after lifetime to remind her, I'm still here. I still need you to save me. Now, when I first thought about that, I thought, what a horrible existence. But then, upon further examination, I realized if they loved their child and their child was sacrificed, then that could potentially be a deal that they struck. Like, allow me to come back and to try again. I have failed, but please allow me to try again. So, this is something that maybe Tabitha and Jade themselves asked for, an opportunity to try again. So, not so much of a condemnation. It seems like they are being condemned to a horrible fate, but perhaps seeing that they failed, they themselves struck the deal. The monsters, those people got eternal life, while Tabitha and Jade got eternal opportunities, unlimited opportunities to try and try again. I could potentially see that being part of it. Okay, let's see. So, Lysandra Dragonoff says, do you think that the town's set up for Thomas' death, so Jim and Tabitha to break up, for the family to show up in the town? Hmm. Let me see if I'm understanding correctly. Do you think that the town set up for Thomas's death? Oh, okay. Was it all a setup so that they would end up in FRoM? So, what I think potentially what we're looking at now that we have further information that Julie is able to interact with things that have already happened, I think that we might even be looking at Julie having made that call. Julie being the person who made the call because she would know her parents' landline number and trying to tell them, hey, something is about to happen to Thomas. But instead, what happened is that she is who caused Thomas's death, forever creating a cycle of unescapable fate. I think that's potentially something that um, we're looking at. And yes, I think that all of the people in the story, all of our characters, they were all being set up to embark on a journey to gain a new perspective of life. And we could interpret that as the man in yellow says, knowledge comes with a cost. They were all going into a new lifestyle, a change in scenery. Some, like Christy, they were engaged. So when you're embarking on a journey, you're really embarking on a journey to get to know a different aspect of what life could be like, right? Okay, let's see. So Breezy K says, I like that theory, PM, that they are cursed to try and fix their original sin. Yes, I think that that's potentially what we're looking at. And for the monsters, now, historically, what we know is that if you try to, from media, books, literature, the deal with the devil story is iconic. We have seen it before, right? And the whole idea of the deal with the devil is that he tricks you. You will never win. You either ask for something and he gives it to you in the worst of ways, or it's that be careful what you wish for sort of thing. I think that the monsters, they tried to outsmart whoever was making this deal for them. And they said, I want eternal life and I want to be happy forever. Now, meaning happy forever, he gave them what they wanted. They're eternal, they can't die, and they have a big smile plastered on their face. It's not real. I don't think that any of us think that the monsters are having the best time, right? They're also, in a way, condemned into an existence that is less than ideal, into an existence where they sleep all day and at night they are condemned to kill, to have a smile. They do nothing else. Okay, let's see. So Golden Child says, or maybe Christopher wanted to sacrifice the kids and Miranda didn't. That could be why she told Victor to stay away from him. Yes. So what we saw Christopher saying is that he didn't believe the boy in white. and saying this place lies. It's There is a potential there for Christopher to try to outsmart the boy in white. Maybe he thought, I'm going to do the opposite of what he said. I don't trust him, so I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite. Since he is not to be trusted, the answer must be the opposite of what he's telling me. All City Big Heck says, imagine if Julie's story walked and knocked Thomas over. Wow. Well, that would definitely make her an antagonist in the story. I don't know why she would want to knock poor little Thomas over. Um, but I can see it being like an unnecessary evil. Let's say that Julie changed something, everything got messed up, and so she was condemned to go back and to knock Thomas over so that he would die, so that the story would be fixed. Sometimes when you like in time traveling, how what we have seen in media literature, if you change something, you think you're fixing things, but it might cause further damage that you're not willing to deal with. So then you have to go back and undo what you did. If you save Thomas, now you have to kill Thomas. So yeah, I could definitely see that for sure. Oh, hi, little saggy star. There's little saggy star. She's amazing. Hi, darling. And Steph, the little doll, we have Steph 0.1816. She says, hello, I didn't get a notice. Okay. Everybody who is, late to the party is always fashionably late. So don't even worry about it. Now, I apologize if I am missing, some of your comments. It is my first live, but I will try my best. And excuse me, it is definitely not intentionally. Oh, thank you so much, Asorciel. Let's see. So Glue Guns and Roses says Ethan is an 8-year-old telling Julie what he read in his book. We saw she can do small things like throw a rope. Good point, Glue Guns and Roses. I think you're right on point. When Ethan said that, my first thought was, well, what do you know, Ethan? You don't know. This is not, while we have heard hints that the story that Ethan is reading, his whole idea of the Kramanako and the journey and embarking into a hero's journey, it does correlate to FRoM. It doesn't exactly have to be what Ethan says. If she can throw a rope, she can push Thomas off the table potentially, like someone said here in the chat. She could make a call, like I think she did. I think she made a call. So that has the potential to change the story. I think you're right on point with that one. Now, our next live and the video that I'm working on for you guys is going to be detailing what the Yellow King has to do with the story. We're going to go ahead and simplify the story of the Yellow King, and we're going to look into FRoM how it is applied and how we have already seen it. Okay, also the Beghead says, I feel like going back to the sacrifice to save the children is too easy. Correct. That could definitely be a possibility. The stakes definitely have to be higher because if now all we have to do is find a way back there and we have somebody that has the potential to do that, like Julie, we're looking at a very simplified storyline. So I think that you are correct, which is why I think that they introduced the men in yellow. We need it to be more difficult so that it's not as simple as going through the tree or going back in time. Okay. Question from Saggy Star. What is the Yellow King? I saw Jeremy Ice and Fire thumbnail for that video, but I didn't watch it yet. Okay, so I call him Jeremy's Yellow King. Jeremy in the season 1, episode 2, I think he said, he spotted that FRoM was very much like the city of Carcosa, the Yellow King. Now, I will be going into a live and a video trying to simplify the story because it kind of does get a little bit tricky. But to summarize, the Yellow King is a story about a play. So imagine, if you will, you're reading a story where there's a world in which there is a play called The Yellow King. Now, that play is cursed. If you read it, you go insane. Anybody that has ever read it doesn't live to tell the tale because they go absolutely crazy, insane. So, when you're reading The Yellow King, you're walking through the story of different characters that decided to pick up the play and to read it. And we're walking through their experience of losing their mind, of slowly going crazy, slowly being trapped in the city of Carcosa. Let's look at the comments. Okay. Jeremy's Yellow Man theory is from a book or old story. I'm not familiar with. Yeah, so that's what I was referring to. It gets tricky, but in a simplified way to explain it, it would be you are reading a book, okay? A book about a world where there is a play that tells a story of the Yellow King and Carcosa. Now, in this world, people have knowledge about the play. They know that it is something you should never read. There's rumors and people know this, but we have characters that go on to read the play and we see through their eyes what the play does to them. Now, in this city, the city of Carcosa, in the play, there exists the ruler, the king in yellow. He rules this town. He rules the city of Carcosa. He's the type of entity that is so ancient that a lot of people call him a forgotten god. So he has all of these powers of being able to transcend time, space, and to manipulate your reality. Okay, just a minute. Okay. Jay Sleek says the man in yellow has a suit, which gives him character, like the monster's uniforms do. But he has an Ankui t shirt on underneath. Yes, Jay Sleek. So I think that you got it right here with this comment. You totally got it right. We see the marrying of these two entities that we have seen, the Nkui children and the monsters, and we see that he wears both, that he has something to do with both. A lot of people were saying that they believe that the melody released the king in yellow or the man in yellow, and I disagree. I think that we do have evidence to show that he has been there all along. Not only has he been there, but FRoM is his town. He has been making calls, right? I do believe him to be behind not only the call that Jim received, but the phone calls that he was getting at home, not just with the radio tower. And I do believe him to be the entity that crushed the Matthews house. So he has been there. He has been there all along. He is the type of entity, the type of old god that is multidimensional. and can do anything he wants without you, one, seeing him, two, hearing him, or being even able to stop him. This is his town. They arrived. Now, like I said, we're gonna talk about this in another live. But if you saw True Detective season 1, they use a line from The King in Yellow. The line being, "Have you seen the yellow sign?" Now, we all have noticed that in FRoM, a lot of people wear yellow. Yellow is everywhere. It's either in the props or the background, or Boyd wears it. He wears those yellow t shirts. So they, in fact, have seen the yellow sign because it's all around them. They don't recognize that they are in Carcosa, but yes, they have seen the yellow sign. They are literally living in that place, and the signs have been there all along. Okay, Alcide Heck says, "Is he the one that knocks?" Yes, exactly. So if you remember Jim, he made a big deal of like the knocking, and so did Boyd, because they were flat on the ground. But somebody was able to knock without them seeing them from the ground up to the RV. That was the man in yellow, the Yellow King. I keep wanting to call him the Yellow King because I feel like it is so obvious. Is he a four-dimensional being? Yes, he would be. And so would every god. You could argue that every god and angel that people have seen or talked about is a higher dimensional being. Something that's really interesting is that in the Bible, the angels are not depicted as humans. We imagine them to be humans and beautiful with wings, but their depiction is absolutely insane. A lot of the times they don't have faces, or they have a billion eyes. And I believe that to be because we can only see in a limited amount of dimensions, and they are higher dimensional beings. So while they might have two eyes, we just see a billion because they are to a level where we can't even comprehend. Let me see. Yes, please like the stream and subscribe. Um, let's see. Okay, so Green Spider says that's why we can stop the mole talk. Man in Yellow sees it all. He doesn't need a mole. Donna is not a mole. Okay, Green Spider. I agree. I don't think that Donna is a mole. Um, my personal opinion, I really don't think that there is a need for one because, like I said, Man in Yellow, King in Yellow, he could do what he wants. In fact, his brand is destruction, corruption. So it's literally his job. Okay, let's see. Glue Guns and Roses says, "I'm so sad for the kids starting season 4." Okay, the Nkui children. Yes, I actually thought it was absolutely heartbreaking when we witnessed Tabitha's little girl, her daughter. She goes over. If we notice, all of the children show up, but only one walks up to uh, Tabitha, Jade, and Jim. And I do believe that that one that walks up, which is the one that you see here on the screen, is their daughter, because she is the one that can make them remember who she is and remember the promise that they made her. I found it really heartbreaking that Tabitha, I expected a bit more from her. Her little girl tells her, "Remember?" And she has been waiting. She has been waiting lifetimes for her mother's embrace. for her father to come back, her mother to see her, for them to remember. And so far, Tabitha has screamed no, no, no at her, right? When Tabitha finally remembers, I expected her to embrace her, to have this hug between Tabitha and the little Nkui child to comfort her, for she has been living in this cold, isolated place. And instead, Tabitha runs. She says no. She runs out. The little girl is left there waiting. I found that to be very cruel, on top of what she already went through. And I really did expect for Tabitha to embrace her. They have been through this so many times, and it must be so absolutely painful and heartbreaking. And Tabitha just ran away. Okay, Chocolate Beauty says the men in yellow could have attended some of those wild parties in Colony House. Yes, actually, there is a connection here, Chocolate Beauty. So right on point as always. In the play, The Yellow King, he does attend a ball. He attends a ball where people are wearing face mask. And while they are wearing this face mask, they're going around having a grand time, drinking, in parties, as they tend to do. As the night comes to an end, things just devolve. They go deeper and deeper. They devolved into a little bit more of a chaos. At the end of this ball, two people approach this man in yellow who wears a pale mask. And they say, okay, well, it is time to remove our mask. They ask him to remove his, and he says, I am not wearing one. And that's because he has been attending the party all along. He was there with them, and they had no idea that they were in the presence of one of the scariest, most horrifying, cosmic horror gods or forgotten lords that could possibly exist. Okay, so we have Quan Solar. He says, is the Men in Yellow CEO of Run Day Move? Yes, I could definitely see that. There is a potential for that. We see the one thing that we see outside of From and in From is the Run Day Move company. We have seen them inside of From because of Boyd's Rendezvous truck, the calendar that Donna has, and outside of From because we saw that advertisement. Um, he has to have a way of looking at the outside world and picking the people that he wants, the people that are not necessarily players, that are not condemned, but that have the potential of arriving in From. So, of course, he would need a company or a place to be able to do this. Okay. Chocolate Beauty says, I think I wouldn't be touching them dirty kids. I mean, maybe that's why Tabitha did not want to hug her own child. Um, Quite cruel, in my opinion, but I could definitely see it. I could see it. Now, we are going to go ahead and end the live in about 20 minutes. Do you guys have anything that you guys want to discuss? Any opinions on the finale? Okay, so we have Quan Solar. His question is, did Jade's violin summon the men in yellow? No. So it is my opinion that he did not summon the men in yellow, for he needs no summoning. This is his home. This is his kingdom. You don't need to summon him. He lives there. He's always been there. They are in his city. This is the Men in Yellow's town. Now, I would like to give you just briefly another connection with the King in Yellow, Jeremy's King in Yellow, and the Men in Yellow. The Men in Yellow, what he attacks is your mind. That is what he attacks because you are seeking knowledge from him. Now, how does he do that? What he will do is take what you know and he will distort it. It would look similar to a familiar scene or object, but it's off, and it's off in a horrifying way. A good example of this is the AI art. If you have ever gone into any of those tools, you'll type in a prompt and it'll make some art for you. It almost looks right, but then you notice that there's an extra head or the hands are misshapen. Things are not looking normal or human. AI art is a beautiful example of what you would see in Carcosa. That would be your reality. It looks familiar, but things are missing or added. For example, everybody was asking about the motel. Where is the motel? Well, the motel is not there because it was designed this way. It's supposed to look familiar, but there has to be things that are fading. When you go into this journey with the King in Yellow or the Men in Yellow in this case, things slowly disintegrate. They start to fade. That is what the word that is used. They fade. So you're looking at a scene. Everything is there. At some point, the motel was there. However, with time, it faded. And now you're left with a um, very confusing scene. You have more questions than answers. The houses don't match. That is by design because you're supposed to be ill at ease. You're not supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to look almost like a real place, but not quite. Okay, so Vanessa Wickett says Tabitha was underwhelming. Yes. Oh, yes. Like I said, we could have had an amazing reunion. Could you imagine if Tabitha had, began crying and embracing? We saw her for the first time touch these little Kui children that she has been screaming at, embraced her and comforted her like a child. Maybe even Jade, him being the father. But instead, we really just had her running away from them again. I think more than underwhelming, it was heartbreaking to think of the eternal wait that this child has been in, only to be met with a mother that refuses to remember, even when she does remember. Okay, so we have no context says Smiley didn't become Smiley until Kimono Lady took him into the hatch and hatched him. Yes, so our very own real enigmas and theories. He has been discussing the the devil egg being Smiley, and you're absolutely right. He has mentioned the hatch and having to hatch this egg, and out of this egg comes out Smiley, the devil, not the literal devil, but a version of it. Okay, so let's see. Baby Clay Media and Reaction says, I think the entity knew Boyd was going to kill Smiley, so Fatima could have been pregnant well before he was killed. Yes, it is a possibility. Also, remember, The beautiful and the frustrating thing about the king in yellow, potentially the man in yellow, is that things don't have to make sense to you. It's actually preferred if they don't. If the timeline does not align for you, that is what he wants. He doesn't want you to be grounded in reality. So this would be right up his alley to take somebody that is already pregnant and then to introduce as a higher dimensional being, literally put a baby into this person who ends up not being a baby, but in fact being Smiley himself. This is his realm. So when we are embarking into this king in yellow, man in yellow, Carcosa theory, we need to let go of all reason because this place has no reason, of all timeline because time doesn't exist in this dimension. Time is not relevant. He is so powerful. He can do whatever he wants. Carcosa is said to be a portal to the abyss. And we have that famous quote. If you guys recall, you stare into the abyss, and the abyss shall stare right back at you. Meaning that looking for more knowledge, looking to follow the thread, eventually you end up discovering that you may, in fact, be nothing because you are everything, and that you lose your sense of self because we use reality to tell us who we are. Sometimes we put together like our race, nationality, family, job, interest, hobby, and we take those things and we create an identity and we say, this is who I am. But we're not really any of those. Isolated, all of those things, it's not us. We use so many things to tell us what we are that when everything is taken from us, we lose our sense of self. And if we sit there and we really think about it, we could go insane, which is the philosophy of the king in yellow. There is some knowledge so vast that if you do learn it, you will be forever changed and not in a good way. For example, Fatima. She now has knowledge of what the monsters are. She said, I saw them. That was her quote. She didn't say that they told him. She literally said, I saw them. Now, saying I saw them, I saw what they did, she's forever changed by this knowledge. She will never be the same. It correlates to trauma. We have seen in the show, like somebody mentioned, Jim has been through a lot of trauma. A lot of people were theorizing that Sarah may have been schizophrenic. We got a mention of a possible phantom pregnancy, which is also a mental disorder. So we have been shown in different ways mental illness, which is the realm and the kingdom of the king in yellow. I'm just grabbing some water, guys. Sorry. Okay, so we have here Vanessa Wickett says, now we know the monsters can never die. Yes, Vanessa. And what I mean, it changes the game, right? Because we were thinking, why aren't you killing them? Why aren't you doing X, Y, and Z? There is no point anymore. There is no point. If you kill them, what they're gonna do is they're just gonna keep on reappearing, being reborn. And when we really think about it, this is no gift. When they sacrificed their children, they did not get anything in return but eternal condemnation into not being able to die. We see it all the time in philosophy stories where people who are eternal vampires, People who have the ability of eternity get to a point where it is too much, where they want the resolve of it. They want the peace that comes with not existing, with being part of the universe and not being, as it were, alive. So, in reality, the monsters, what they got is condemnation. They can't even get the pleasure of dying, of escaping this type of existence. Okay, so Vanessa Wicked, where is this information on the yellow story? The King in Yellow. So this is a book. You can buy the book, you could do audiobook, and then after you do the audiobook or the book, there are different philosophers who have looked into the story and they will give you their particular take. Like any good story, the story of the King in Yellow is open for interpretation. So after you read the book, you could go online or you could go to, I believe Harvard even has a paper on it where you can see the different philosophy, people's different take on it. I did link the fastest, most comprehensive video in one of my community posts. If you don't have the time, you want something that's fast and comprehensive, I link the best video I have found to explain this story. I suggest that you look at it. It's full of information, so you might need to like pause and replay, but I'll make sure to link it. Okay, let's see. Jay Sleek says, their smiles hide their anguish. Maybe they are torn up on the inside but forced to smile. Absolutely. Yes. And this is what I was referring to when I say they tried to outsmart the man himself, the creator of pain and suffering. And you cannot outsmart him. There's no way. He will always find something to make you suffer with. So I think that literally they said, we want eternal life and we want to be happy forever. And that's what they got. They got eternal life. They're always smiling, but they're not happy. They are not existing. They are subhuman creatures that can't even die, which is why I think that we see sometimes the creatures are not even killing the people. They don't run to make the kill because it's not interesting anymore. Because it's not, what type of life is it? They also steal things. They go around the house, colony house, looking at the plants. They get into the bus and they pretend to drive it because they are pretending to exist, to live, to remember what it used to be like, to be able to do something other than kill. That's why they don't run, because this is condemnation. They're not having fun. Even though they say, I like this game, this is fun. I think that that's part of the curse. Part of the curse is for them to always be happy, to always be enjoying themselves, but they're not, in my opinion. Okay, baby Clay Media. Smiley to Boyd, hello, grandfather. And you know he's going to use that. You know he's going to use that because this is the realm of taunting. This is the realm of pain and suffering. So they're going to, for sure, remind them. I might even see him like telling Fatima, like, hi, mom. He's going to use it. There is no way that Smiley allows them to live that down. Never. Okay. And Baby Clay says, Boyd says, I gotta go. And I think that we got a really cool depiction of I gotta go in the finale. Because when Fatima tells them that the kimono lady took it. She says she took it down there. Ellis wants Boyd to come with him, and Boyd says no. I have to see it. I have to see it for myself. I have to go. I gotta go. Take care of your wife. I'll be right behind you. And once again, we see Boyd willing to sacrifice himself. We see Boyd willing to say, my child may not be able to look at what the product of this pregnancy was, and Fatima herself may not be able to look at the product of the pregnancy, but someone has to do it. Someone has to know, because he had to know if it was a real baby, if it was a human baby. And now that he knows that it's Smiley, it was knowledge that he needed. However, we go back to there's a cost for knowledge. Now that he knows that, now that Boyd knows how Smiley was born, that you can't kill them, now that changes his life forever. He had a bit of hope. He said, we're going to catch a monster. There was hope there. But now you have to imagine the hopelessness that comes with the knowledge that you can't kill them. They'll just come back. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Green Spider says, Smiley will say, your blood is my blood. Motherfucker. And that is true, Green Spider. Thank you so much for the comment. When we first heard the line, your blood is my blood, we are going full circle, guys. Because now, in fact, Smiley's blood is Boyd's blood because they're family members. Their bloodlines are connected. Boyd did not know it at the time, but the spell of your blood is my blood had more depth to it than he would know at the time, because they are blood related now. And that is his grandchild. Very good catch, Green Spider. Very good. Okay, so All City Big Hick says, why does Jim die while minding his business? But Boyd but Boyd's nosy ass gets to hop in and out of caves. Well, we might be looking at the indication for it. Your blood is my blood. He gets to do more because maybe at this point, the corruption is such that he's actually existing as a parallel to the monsters, being able to do more. Now, remember what we said about the monsters. The monsters are not able to die because they do not get the satisfaction or the sweet release of death. And that might be the same for Boyd. When we remember Ethan and Alma, Tian Cheng, that storyline, Ethan tells Boyd, can you please kill Alma first? And the reasoning behind that is, I don't want her to suffer by seeing the people that she loves or the animals she loves being killed. If you look at it, death is not a punishment, not in a place like FRoM. In a place like FRoM, death might actually be one of the kindest things you could do, because you let them escape this circle of hell, basically. And in a way, maybe Boyd has received that punishment, that he will not die until he sees every single person that he loves die. So I'm not saying that they won't kill him, but perhaps they will not kill him until every single person he loves dies before him. Okay, let's see. Glue Guns and Rosa says, I always love when PM joins a live. Glad she's doing her own, easy on the ears and reasonable theory. Yeah, and I'm not really doing theories. Thank you so much for the compliment, Glue Guns and Roses, of course. I'm not interested in theorizing, but I am interested in looking into the philosophy, looking into the big themes that are going on in the show, looking into the human experience. When we see a show like From, a lot of us can connect what we're seeing on the screen to our life. Uh, Once we put away the ideas that life is black and white, and we acknowledge that life is made of gray areas, then we could look further into the story in a way that becomes interesting. For example, we have Sarah here. Sarah is not a simple character, for she is likable, and we know that there is a background where she might have been victim or a victimized person, and she has done bad things. We need to be able to hold two ideas at once in our mind that are opposing, and only then are we going to see the true aspect of life and nature. Everybody has felt like Sarah at some point in their life. Maybe you didn't attempt murder, hopefully. I hope that you didn't. But everybody has felt that they have done something that they may not be able to come back from, or felt like a bad person, felt the need or the want to help, to be helpful so that you may feel part of the community. At Jim, like I was saying, whether you hate the character or not, what he's illustrating when he says, sometimes I remember what things used to be like. And what he's showing us, having love and having lost love, and knowing that you will never be the person for that particular individual. Everybody has been through something like this. And if you have been spared, then it's because it's not time, but it will come. And that's the inevitable. I don't want to tell you that you're going to suffer, but suffering does come with life. And if you haven't experienced that pain at some point it'll come. I'm a pessimist. I'm sure that you guys can tell. My own personal life philosophy, I'm a pessimist. Doesn't mean that I can be hopeful, but just I love the melancholia of life. Okay, so Consoler says, your voice is very soothing, in my opinion, and you make sense and you're not combative. Thank you. Thank you. I can be combative. I can be. Let's see. Okay. I love your banter with J reviews. Okay. I love your banter with JH reviews live last night. I'm a subscriber now. Okay, cool. See, that proves that I, in fact, can be combative. I had to get a sense of humor, and I have to be able to get in the fight. My father ruled with an iron fist, and my mother was mean. So, what does that make someone? That makes somebody creative and funny. You have to have a sense of humor. Big City Big Heck, All City Big Heck says, well, there's something about the themes. A lot of the episodes have had an overarching theme for the episode, that there are multiple characters feeling the same way at the same time. Yes. Yes. And thank you for your comment. Exactly. Which is what we're trying to illustrate in this live. In this live, we saw sacrifice. So the sacrifice for love. That was Boyd. He sacrificed himself for the love of his child. The sacrifice to love, that was Jim. Jim was sacrificed to love, because there are two people that are joined and bound together as soulmates, as it were, and it wasn't him. So he had to be sacrificed. And then we have the sacrifice of love, and that is the monsters. They sacrifice people, or children in this case, that love them. They didn't love the children, but the children loved them. They're very specific when they tell us that story. The children were murdered by someone they loved. So in one episode, We got to see the same theme, sacrifice, love, in three different ways in a prismatic way. Let me get a drink, just a minute. Okay. Blue Guns and Roses says, I'm more of a chismosa. Okay, so then you would get along with Tilly. Because to me, that's what Tilly was doing. Tilly was a chismosa at heart. If you know anything about chisme, anything about being nosy, Tilly could be nosy with the best of them. And she would love the storyline about the baby. She would be all for it because you know that she likes to get messy. She would want to know who the baby's father is, all of it. Golden Child says, to live is to suffer, but to survive. Well, that's to find meaning in the suffering. Very well said, Golden Child. Very well said. There is not a soul on this earth that will not experience suffering, which takes me to that point that I was making about Boyd. A lot of people are being very hard on Boyd, in my opinion. There's a quote from True Detective, which is also based and inspired by The King in Yellow. So, our detective, Russ Cole, who investigates different sorts of murders and scenes and all of this, he says, think of the hubris it must take to yank a soul of non existence into this, to force a life into this thresher. Meaning, when you have a child, you have taken this soul and said, I will now give you existence, condemn you to at some point suffer. And the least that you could do is carry out the responsibility of lessening the suffering. You can keep your children from suffering. What you can do is lessen the suffering. And what did Boyd do? He lessened the suffering for Ellis. He couldn't help Ellis and fix all of his problems, but he lessened his suffering by being the person that took care of the difficult part of the job, that gave his soul so that Ellis wouldn't have to. And Golden Child credits German philosopher, poet Friedrich. Yes. Baby Clay Media says the DMX quote is undefeated. Well, would you put it on the chat? We want to know. What's the quote? We want to know. Juan Solar says, to know the good, you have to go through the bad. Yes. So my favorite book is a book on the philosophy of life, in which a man that embarks on a journey says, if you stay away from the edges of life, from being too happy or hurting too much, you will not live or experience all of the love you could experience or all of the pain or suffering either. Meaning, you could play it safe, but what's the point of playing it safe? Jackson Rain says we have to adapt, reform, and accept it. Correct, which is exactly what we have in FRoM. Remember when Kenny is telling Acosta basically, you need to adapt. You need to be bamboo and you're trying to be steel. What does that mean? If you don't adapt and go with the flow, and if you don't try to adjust to the fact that this is now reality, then you are going to break mentally and physically and spiritually. Very true. So Steph.1816 says, how will Jim's death affect Ethan? Very badly. Ethan, we were talking about tragedy and loss, and Ethan has been through a enormous amount of tragedy and loss. He lost his baby brother. He mentions his grandfather's death, and now his father is dead. So this is going to definitely be very difficult for him. He has gone through so much already. I don't think he's going to take it well. And like I said, some people like Jim, some people didn't, but we must acknowledge that he did have a very tragic story. And that while you can be an annoying person or a bad person, I don't think he was a bad person necessarily, or a bad partner, husband. It doesn't mean that you deserve all of this pain and suffering. No one does. Okay, so Golden Child says DMC took it from the German poet. PM, you sound like an anti natalist. Perhaps, yeah. Let's see. Quan Solar. Please read my Julie question about saving Jim. Let's go up and I will find that for you. Okay, so I believe I found it. So you say, do you think that Julie will keep trying to save Jim obsessively, going through the ruins to the detriment of her own life? Yes, I think that she will. I think that it's not going to be the only focus. She's definitely going to try to change other things, like the death of Thomas. We literally have her saying that in the scene in the diner. She tells Ethan, who is worried about forgetting Tian Chang and Thomas, she tells him, maybe I can go back and save Thomas. I don't know why it's blurry, but it's here in the back. It's loading, so. Oh, and we completely forgot to talk about Henry and Victor. Henry and Victor had the same storyline about sacrificing for your child. He tells Victor, your mother did what she did because she loved you. So he is emphasizing that it doesn't matter if you gave her information that ended up killing her. This is my job now. It is my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. Okay. Okay, so Steph says, I hope it doesn't make Ethan really angry or harder or harden him. Well, we once again, we embark on this journey of knowledge. What does the men in yellow say? Knowledge comes with a cost. Children are not supposed to know certain things because they are too difficult and too painful. Once a child has knowledge of certain things, the difficulty and the pain of it will forever change them. While we wouldn't like Ethan to be hardened or to go through this or be changed, he will inevitably be changed. There is no way that he can go through this trauma and not be changed. Now, the theme of trauma is seen throughout the entire season of from season 1 through this season. Trauma is a big, big part of the show. And sometimes you see how characters have been stuck in that place where the big trauma happened, unable to escape. In a way, FRoM is a metaphor of our own minds when we go through trauma. When we go through trauma, it takes work to get unstuck from whatever it is that happened, which is why you have adults that are still stuck somewhere in the past. And it takes work to walk yourself out of it, to escape it. Okay, so Quan Solar says, it would be so awesome if Julie turns goth. Doesn't eat, just goes to the ruins every day and Ethan gets darker and darker. Yeah, I love gothic themes, Gothic people, Gothic clothes, fashion, style. I myself am quite Gothic, strange and unusual. Yeah. So unless you guys have any questions, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining. Did you guys like the presentation here, the different pictures in the background? Do you guys prefer or have any comments on what would make the stream a better experience for you? Please let me know. Um, I will take everything into consideration. I want you to be able to enjoy the discussion and to provide your own take on the topic of the week. This will be pretty much the format. The format will be very simplified, and we're going to talk about one specific topic per live. Thank you so much for coming. Once again, please leave your comments with any suggestions. I love you all. Thank you for visiting PM Case Files.
Philosophy.